Hello, my name's Bob Willis and welcome to Defect of the Month. Every month I take the opportunity of looking at a process defect and hopefully provide you solutions. This month I'd like to look at solder balloons. Now that kind of sounds a little strange and you may not have heard that term before. It's basically a defect that I've noticed over the years and have coined the phrase, if you like. So what a solder balloon is a balloon of solder which is typically sitting on a through via. And you can see this after selective soldering, after wave soldering, and possibly after reflow soldering, depending on the process that you're actually using. And the solder balloon can be a balloon, a football, but it can also be solder which has formed a round shape but has actually blown apart, actually started to pop. If you can imagine a balloon blowing up and you capture it in high speed, you see different formations of the balloon, and the same with the solder. So it's a problem in so much that if you're accessing particular parts of the board for testing purposes, then an uneven surface is no good whatsoever. If it's a case that you're doing double-sided reflow soldering, for instance, then having a solder balloon on the opposite side of the board and then trying to solder paste print on second stage assembly, that would be a problem as well. You can see it on wave soldering on the bottom side of the board typically, and again on selective soldering. So how do solder balloons form? Well, it's unfortunately one of those old topics of outgassing from the printed circuit board. I mean, first of all, really in most instances you don't want to solder a via. A via will be capped, it will be filled. It's another point on the board that you may not necessarily need to access, so why try and solder it in the first place? There are some reasons sometimes that people want to solder them, but we'll deal with that a little bit later on. So if you have an open via and you're going to wave or selective solder, or you're going to solder the via in itself during reflow soldering, then one of the things you don't want is outgassing from the printed circuit board. Now outgassing, as I'm sure you'll know, is moisture in the printed circuit board, and during the soldering process water vapor escapes through the plating, be it thin plating, pore plating, voids in the plating, etc., and you can see it. Many of you will have experienced or have seen the videotape that I produced over the years showing this particular phenomena happen. Now, in addition, we can have solder balloons as part of a BGA soldering operation onto vias. Now, what we're actually saying is that if outgassing occurs from the via, that outgassing can create a different size joint on a BGA termination which is sitting on a via. Now, back in the very early days of BGA technology, we did some experiments with soldering of BGAs directly to vias, and on some occasions we did get this outgassing phenomena, and you can see quite nicely in these X-ray images the impact it had on the size or size variation. We can also see a couple of examples of microsections which show perfectly good solder joints. So again, it's just another experiment that we were doing back in the day, but again highlighting the potential issue of outgassing from vias.